What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mongols. This is our prediction show where we're going to take a look at what we expect to happen as the Charleston Battery head to Highmark Stadium this weekend to take on the Riverhounds. I am Mike Sparks. Joining me for this one is Justin Ashcraft. Justin, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing fantastic. How are you?
I have to. I'm good. I have to say on air, even though through the magic of time, I guess when this actually airs, it won't be your birthday, but today is actually your birthday. So happy birthday! How are you celebrating things?
Yeah, took the day off work and just kind of relaxing, chilling. Yeah, trying to figure out we're recording this at noon and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to spend the rest of the day. So I really have no idea. We'll figure it out as we go.
That's a great place to be. Um, do you guys? I know what Laura Ellen's birthday is actually the day before yours. So do you guys typically do
hmm
separate birthdays, or do you do like one big birthday? How do you do that?
I think we've done it different ways every year. I don't know. We don't have a specific plan or specific thought of how we do it. I think the weirdest part about it is sort of like giving gifts, I guess, is because it's just like, all right, well, I'll give you a gift yesterday, you give me a gift today. Like, I don't know. It all comes from the same pot of money. So I don't that's kind of like weird, but other than that, I think it's fun. Some years we've tried to go do something, have an adventure of some sort. We didn't do that this year. So we've done it different ways.
Does Raina Jean ever feel left out that her birthday is not this week as well?
No, I think she likes having her own birthday season.
Birthday season. Okay. Nice. I guess I would too. So yeah, I get that. Well, there's lots of news. We haven't done one of these prediction shows. I look back in almost a month, a little bit less than a month. It's been crazy. So lots of stuff that we haven't really talked about as it relates to the team. Let's get into some of that. We'll talk a little bit about what we expect from the battery. First up is something more recent. Loudon lost to Indy on Tuesday, which means they now sit 2 points ahead of us. And we both played the same amount of games. So this was kind of the ideal scenario that we were hoping for. We know they have Indy in the middle of this week, and then they have another game this weekend before we take them on the following week. It is kind of crazy to look at the table and realize that there's only 3 games left for most of these teams. And really, only the top 2 teams have locked up a playoff spot. Like, literally, Detroit is sitting in third, and they have not yet locked up a playoff spot. That's kind of where we're at. So, best case scenario for us at this point, all things considered.
Uh, I would have actually made the argument that a draw would have been better, and so I actually
Mm.
turned on the game with about 30 minutes left last night. It was, yeah, it was a crazy end of the game actually. Indy scored, I guess, with about 8-9 minutes left in regular time, and then about a minute and a half later got a red card, and so Loudon had the pressure on for 10-15 minutes trying to, and then they gave 6 minutes of stoppage time, so it was like, and Loudon was, they didn't leave the 30 yards of the field, from Loudon's goal in that last 10-15 minutes. And so it was actually interesting. So I think I, I'd put a post in Slack this week about our chances of maybe even catching Indy. And I
Mhm.
think with them getting 3 points in this game and then knowing who they have left, I don't think we catch them at this point. And so I think a draw would have given us more teams that we could catch to get a playoff spot. And so I think the challenge for me thinking about it, and we can talk about this more later, is like I don't necessarily want the eighth spot in the playoffs. And so the more teams that are within the reach, the more chance we could sneak into sixth or seventh. And so this kind of limits the teams that we can catch. So I don't know. Yes, it helps. But I probably would have rather to draw.
That makes sense. Makes lots of sense. Um, In other news, Jockeson won Player of the Week after getting a hat trick in Miami. I think the surprise of no one. Many of you, I should say all of you, if you're listening to this, you will have had the opportunity to have heard my interview with Jockeson before hearing this show. We will drop it the day before. So if you haven't listened to that, make sure you go listen to it. Um, I project that it's going to be awesome, but having not actually done the interview yet, I don't actually know. So, leave in the comments what you thought of that one, and we'll see if it sort of matches up with my expectations. The other news was that Gabby made Team of the Week for his shutout over Miami, which good on him. I wasn't fully expecting. I mentioned in the recap show there were some saves that he had to make at the end of the game, but for the most part, good to see at least both of those guys getting shout outs, I should say, in terms of Team of the Week.
Mhm.
In Riveters news, this has been, news for probably the past few weeks now, but the team announced that Scott Gibson is going to be their head coach, which Scott, I don't know if we've had Scott on the show. I feel like we've had Scott on the show, but maybe not. Scott has led the Riverhounds Development Academy for years, literally. And so the news that he's going to be taking over the USLW team makes a lot of sense. He will still continue to run the Riverhounds Development Academy because the W team really only operates for a month ish. So he'll have a lot of downtime in between. The other big news is that they announced that Tessa Delarose will be the first player in team history. Tessa is, we've talked about Tessa for years now. She's a local outside back. She went through the Hounds Academy. She's played for the U.S. women's national team. At one point in 2023, she was dubbed the MVP after scoring the winning goal in the CONCACAF Women's U20 Championship. And she's currently playing with North Carolina, where she's been named the All ACC third team and ACC freshman team. So I guess, Justin, just thoughts on all of the Riveters news that we're kind of catching up on at this point?
Yeah, excited that we have a coach at this point who, will be looking for players and all that kind of stuff that, this early and being able to, we've seen teams even in the USL Championship get to a month before the season and not have a coach. So it's fun that we have somebody who has been working that way and been looking that way, has been, a recruiter of players in his involvement in the academy. So that's really exciting. And then Tessa, I think, is a huge get and a huge signing for the Riveters. As a college player, this is the league that she can play in the summer to keep her game sharp, and so that's super exciting. And obviously Tessa's a player who probably, I would not, I would be shocked if Pittsburgh is not a W League team or a Super League team by the time she graduates, is not a NWSL draft pick or signed to an NWSL team. And so, I think it's exciting to see that, probably during her college years she could play here. And then the fact that she's part of the academy just shows the girls who are currently playing in the academy that there's a pathway. And so that's exciting too.
It will be interesting. I believe that she's in her junior year of college right now. So by next summer, she'll be going after the W season, she'll be going into her senior year. So the pressure will be on, the Riveters to try to see if they can make the leap to the Super League in that subsequent year to try to keep Tessa around. Whether or not that matches their timeline will be interesting to see. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think it's a great signing. I think there's a few other players that I would love to see make a similar signing that we've talked about over the years that would really sort of cement things. But your point about her being a good role model for all the other players coming through the academy is spot on. So I think these first two signings, basically Scott Gibson as coach and Tessa as the first player, are pretty much the perfect start to sort of building things out. I know we had heard some rumblings that they were going to try to
Mhm.
bring in a manager from outside the team, but this just feels like the right way to go. So good on them. Obviously, much more to come. I think they just announced that they're going to be having open tryouts for the Riveters. And they also dropped news today, which is actually 2 days ago when you're listening to this, that season tickets are now on sale. I want to say they're $75. So definitely reasonable for sort of the month long span that the ladies will be playing. So if you're interested, go check that out for sure. Um, Shifting back to the Hounds, obviously the big news: Battery come to town this weekend. Last time we played them was on June 8th. It was a 0-0 draw in Charleston. It's interesting if you look at their stats, they are a much better team at home. They have 12 wins at home versus when they're away, they only have 5 wins. And in their last game, they did draw 2-2 with Detroit, even after Detroit picked up a red in the 57th minute. So Detroit was up 1-0, picked up a red in the 57th minute. Then the Battery went up 2-1, and then they gave up a goal to a 10-man Detroit at the end of the game to leave 2-2. So some weird back and forth there for them. Obviously, their big name player is Nick Markanick, who has 28 goals and 31 appearances, which is insane. He's going to win the Golden Boot. For those who haven't been sort of paying attention on the socials, he's already signed a deal to join Spanish Segunda Division side CD Castellon in January. So he knows that this is going to be his last season with the Battery, and good for the Battery and good for the USL. We've talked a lot about coaching up players and sort of selling them on to other leagues so they can continue their career and all of that. And this is clearly a case. 28 goals and 31 appearances. Nick wasn't going to be sticking around. So good on them for sort of making the deal early, but still being able to keep him through, the end of the season. And then he can go off and do his thing. And then finally, it is an Old Guard Shield week, which we don't talk about a lot because really the Battery and the Hounds are the only two teams left in it outside of random cup competitions. So we shall see. Based on all of that, we were missing Eric. We didn't really miss them. We still won 4-0. We missed Eric Dick and Forbes in the last game. In theory, they should be back for this one. Justin, what are your thoughts on this matchup? Do you think that we change anything about how we approach this one compared to Miami? Just how are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think you obviously have to change your approach. You're playing a much better team than what Miami is, and so you've got to figure out how to do that. I think this game feels like an opportunity to me, but um, maybe not the most important opportunity left on the table. So I think I think if you can get a result, no matter what the result is, win or draw, I think you are gaining points on the teams that you're fighting for a playoff position. I think I didn't go through and look to see like what Charlotte had, what Charleston has done against Loudon, against, I haven't looked to see kind of what the results have been against the teams that were fighting for a playoff position have been. But I would imagine if you get a draw, and say, okay, cool. In the 2 games we played Charleston, we've gotten 2 points. That feels pretty good against the teams that we're fighting against. And so I think you do have a real opportunity if you get a win here. You gain 4 points against the team who is second in the East. And so I do feel like, it's an opportunity to really pick up some points and pick up some spots in the table. And so I would like to see the Hounds go out and try to win this game. Not that you have to. I don't think you go all out and to the point of like, hey, we got to win or lose trying. But I don't want to see them bunker for a draw either. And so I think they played well last week, and I think the value of playing Miami is maybe just confidence of like, hey, cool, we scored 4 goals, we can do this. Now let's go do it against a better team. And so I hope to see them. I hope to see them push a little bit and try to score some goals and then see what happens from there.
It does make me wonder, though. You talked about it. At this point, we need all the points we can get. So let's say that we get to the 70th minute and it's a 0-0 draw. We've talked a little bit. I think it might have been. It was one of the previous shows where we talked about if you're a Lily, which let's just pretend that you don't have all of Lily's tendencies. You're just you, but you're in Lily's position. 70th minute, are you trying to be more conservative to hold on to that point? Or are you going to take a little bit more risk and try to go for all three?
Um, I if it's me, I'm balancing them pretty. I'm trying to tell the team, hey, let's balance what we're doing here. Of if you get an opportunity, take it and go. Try to push up the field. Try to get a goal. But like, let's not do it. Let's not do it. We got to be smart in that moment, because I think a point does you a huge amount of good maybe not a huge amount of good, but it does you good in the table. Because I think there's some other games that are happening that even a point could get you another spot in the table. And so I think I don't want to give up that point that you have. But I think if you can snag three, um, that also that also is great. And so I just in this game I'm taking the draw though, and I think give me 15 minutes later in the game, 85th minute, let's just bunker and try to get the draw. But I think in the 70th, 65th, 70th minute, hey, be smart. If you get an opportunity, go. If you don't, let's not do something stupid at this point. So it is hard to balance. I just think the last two games of the season are way more important, and will help us much more in the table. I think you take what you can get here, and then go all out in the next two.
I like that shout. What do you how do you actually see this one playing out? Like give me a score prediction here.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty cagey game for the most part. I think I it's hard for me sitting in Charleston's shoes. I think there could be some of Charleston saying, "Hey, let's beat the Hounds just to put a damper on their playoff hopes." Um, Although I don't think if we get beat this weekend, it's the worst thing. I don't think it ends our playoff hopes if we get beat this weekend. But I think Charleston, I think there could be some of that. But I think they also could be sitting and saying, "Are not going to catch Louisville. Detroit, Indy, Tampa are not going to catch us. I don't know what we do with these last three games." Like it's hard to be in their shoes because like I think they're kind of locked into second in the table. I don't think that they can really do anything to get out of that spot. And so it's like I could see them being kind of lazy in this game. So I could see it just being sort of from their perspective, hey, nobody get hurt. Nobody get a red card, nobody get hurt, nobody have a violent conduct offense, like let's just get through the game. And so I could see us being able to take a little bit of advantage of that, of like, all right, let's just go and beat a team who doesn't have a lot to play for. So I don't know. I think it could be pretty cagey. I think it also could be a pretty like wide open game if they're not trying to score. If they're kind of all right, let's not get hurt. Let's just have some fun. Let's just get through the game. So it's hard to know exactly, but I just hope from the Hounds' perspective, I think you are trying to gain some points here, and so I hope that they put the foot down a little bit and try to see what they can do. And maybe the one place I think we've seen the Hounds be really, really good is that 45 to 55 coming out of halftime. And, if we can put our foot down in that 10, 15 minutes, try to get a goal or two, and make it a fun night. I think that'll be a good thing.
Yeah. I could see this just as easily being a nil-nil as a like 2-0 Hounds. I
Hmm.
literally I'm like you. It all depends on which Charleston team shows up. I don't I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna feel bad. I don't foresee us losing this one. You brought up the point that we've lost twice in like the past 2 months or something ridiculous like that. So there, Charleston doesn't scare me. I think the only team that would really kind of, air quotes scare me at this point is probably Louisville. But even at that, we've said we can beat pretty much any team that we come up against. It just depends on which Hounds team shows up. So
Hmm.
I think that this is a case where after the 4-0 win in Miami, obviously the team feels like their back is against a wall. I feel like I've been saying this for weeks now, but they're going to be at home. I think that gives us a little bit of a boost. And like you said, I think there's a lot of ambiguity about the battery are still going to want to come in and they're still going to want to try to win every game. But is their head going to be in that right space, knowing that they've already locked up second? Um, Maybe not. This should be a case where the Hounds just want it more. Whether or not that turns into a draw or a win, that's where it's hard to say. But I feel pretty good saying I don't think it's going to be a loss. So I will gladly take a 2-0 win. But I think I'm with you in that a draw in this case is okay but it almost guarantees that we have to win the last two. I feel good about El Paso. It just makes like Loudon becomes our championship at that point, where you have to just put everything behind it to win. Whereas I think if we get a win in this one, yes, you still need to hit Loudon, but maybe El Paso becomes less important. So you can slip up there and still feel okay. I don't know. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I think this is a real interesting weekend. And even 5 or 6 weeks ago, looking at the schedule and trying to see like, hey, what's the weekend that's gonna make or break the weekend for, or like the year for us. This is kind of the week that I was like, I think that's gonna be the week that really shows us like where we can be and like what playoff spot we can get and all that kind of stuff. So, um, Loudon, even after losing last night, they play Rhode Island, and so Rhode Island is 7 points ahead of us. Loudon is 2, and so where they end up. Birmingham plays Las Vegas, so Las Vegas, if you didn't know, is second place in the West, which is like Las Vegas is second place
Yeah.
in the West. But Las Vegas is second place in the West, so they play Birmingham. And so that's a game where Birmingham could win, but they can't really do a whole lot in the table or affect anything else. And then Hartford, North Carolina play. And so that's going to kind of show where they end up in a lot of ways. And then North Carolina does have a game against Tulsa before that. And so it will be interesting to see kind of where that ends up. And I was trying to decide even with that North Carolina game, if we don't win, I'm like, I don't know, but I also would like to see North Carolina almost beat Hartford to kind of put Hartford back in the table and kind of like make them a team we're not fighting anymore. But if Hartford will win that game, then Hartford, North Carolina, Pittsburgh, Loudon are all still right together. And so I don't know. It's hard to know at this point, but I think there's a lot of interactions at this point that make it interesting to see what happened and how we could end up in the table. But I think it's everything we've said this since like I don't know, middle of June, that this season seems like it's on a knife edge, and we're
Yeah.
still there, 3 months later. And so it'll be an interesting thing. The other thing I thought that was interesting that I looked into this week, since June 30th, the Hounds have been fourth in the East as far as points per game, and the only three teams in front of us have been Louisville is getting 2 points a game right now and is on their tear. Charleston has also gotten almost 2 points per game. They're at 1.3 points per game or something like that. And then the team that's kind of surprising that's in third is Rhode Island. They've been getting like 1.8 points per game or something like that. They didn't have a great start to the season and they kind of went on a tear, and that's kind of how they've got to the point where they are in the table. And then we're kind of sitting right behind that. Now, if we beat Charleston, we actually match their results. We'll both have, I don't remember the exact numbers, but over the last 15 games, gotten the same amount of points. And so that's just an interesting thing into this game of like, hey, what teams are trending well and kind of over a longer period of time, not just the last 4 or 5 games, but since June, since July, middle of summer. It is interesting to say, hey, we're trending the same way Charleston is trending. They're just 20 points ahead of us in the table. So who knows?
No, listen, I appreciate having you on and sort of being part of this conversation, because I think, especially as Hounds fans, it's very easy to just look at the here and now and be like, ah, crap, okay, we dropped points here, we lost here, we're still not in the playoff position. But you always tend to sort of take the longer term approach and try to analyze it. And the fact that, like you said, since June, we're in the top 4 in terms of points that we're performing well. It's just that we're still making up for that slump period early in the season
Mhm.
where we lost right off the bat and then we weren't scoring goals. So it's good to keep that in perspective. And, also should be a reason that other teams probably shouldn't be surprised if we are able to get a win this weekend, because we have been playing at that level, sort of above everyone else in the East. We're just trying to make up for all of the lost points that we sort of dug ourselves into that hole. So, yeah.
Yep.
Good stuff as always, sir. That is what we think Let us know what you think. Justin, any sort of closing thoughts here before we see what happens this weekend?
No, one other thing that I thought was interesting, just and it's not Hounds related necessarily, it's just championship related. I so Tampa Bay and Hartford got a game rained out because of Helene, and it still hasn't been rescheduled. So I don't know what they're gonna do as far as rescheduling that game, or like when are they playing that game? I don't know that it's been
Right.
announced of when we're playing that game. So I don't know if they're just trying to decide like, hey, is this gonna matter playoff wise once it all shakes out at the end of the season? And so it doesn't matter. At the time, Tampa was so far out from the teams, but now Detroit and India both caught them. And
Yeah.
so it could actually matter. And even where we are, we could, if Tampa Bay doesn't pick up another point, we could catch them too. And so, and they don't have an easy road. They have got Louisville, North Carolina, Indy. And so there could be a chance that they don't pick up any more points in the games that they have. But then that Hartford game is still sitting out there. So it'll be interesting to see kind of how that shakes out, or when they finally announce the playing of that game.
Can you see, are they home this weekend or are they away?
I can't say, I don't have that. I don't have away or home in front of me.
Because I'd have to imagine that if they were playing in Tampa this weekend with the hurricane moving through, that they would not be playing in Tampa this weekend. So that would have to be another game that likely would be postponed or have to be rescheduled. Um, yeah, interesting tidbit there to keep an eye on for sure, because it definitely could have impacts on playoff positioning. So good shout there.
Uh, they're in Kentucky this weekend at Louisville.
Okay.
So I think they'll
Okay.
be. I think as long
Good.
as they get out at some point, I think they'll be fine.
Yes. Yeah. Good. 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 Alrighty. Well, thanks everybody for listening and watching. We do appreciate it. Make sure that you subscribe wherever it is that you're getting this. The subscriptions absolutely help us with the algorithm, so we do appreciate it. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know how you think this game is going to play out between the Hounds and the Battery, and let us know where do you think we're going to land in the playoffs overall, or not in the playoffs. Give us your prediction, and we'll discuss it on sort of our next episode. But otherwise, thanks everybody. We will be back with more Hounds content for you very, very soon.